recognizing the difference between an obstacle and an objection can be the difference between struggle and success in the car business, especially if you're in your first few years. Typically, managers and experienced salespeople refer to everything as an objection when that's simply not the case. If you look at the actual definition, an objection is a flat-out refusal to do something. So I'm not going to pay $475 a month for that car. I'm not going to put $6,000 down. I'm not going to do a deal where you only give me $5,000 for my trade. I'm not paying 84 months no matter what your interest rate is, so on and so forth. Those are objections. Those are flat out refusals to do something. The way we handle those, all right, is all bets are off, right? We go for it. We attack it with vigor. We do everything we can to close the deal because it's a number, and you've heard that before. Take the deal, right to be right. You've heard all those euphemisms. And the way we handle an objection is very different than the way we want to handle an obstacle. Let me explain to you what an obstacle is. An obstacle is something as simple as, I'm just looking. The car's not for me, it's for my daughter. This is the first place we stopped. That we're going to shop around before we make a decision. We just want to see next year's models. Whatever the case is, the customer is really just offering you an obstacle. An obstacle is something you learned on Sesame Street when you were a kid with the song Over, Under, Around, and Through. That's my job with any kind of an obstacle, is to just figure out how do I get around that thing? How do I take that temporary setback and realize that it's not a setback, that the customer's posturing. The customer's telling me what they will and won't do at that point in time. So I have to have some kind of a technique to handle that. Now, we'll explore those in depth as to what each one is, but there's really basically three things that I have to do. One is recognize. If I recognize, right, the difference between an obstacle and an objection, then I know how to react, which is the second thing. So recognize and then react. So when I react to an obstacle, I have to react in a very positive way that doesn't dead end the situation. It doesn't have me agreeing with the customer or their terms. In fact, it brings me to the third point, to redirect. So my redirection is to say, well, then how about this? So if you really think about it, when I get that at the front door and I get I'm just looking, I'm not buying anything, I didn't bring my checkbook, I don't have my title, I have too many payments left on my car, I want to see what next year's models look like. Whatever the obstacle is, I can get around that with a certain technique. So if I recognize the difference between objections and obstacles, right, I'm well on my way, because half done is well begun. I'm well on my way to success versus struggle. I want to avoid struggle at all costs whenever and wherever I can. The second step, obviously, is to react to it. So I have to react positively. Saying, that's great, that's fantastic, that's fine, that's ridiculous. That stuff didn't work when it was first tried. It doesn't work now. When a customer presents me with a challenge like that, I simply agree with it and say, okay, I understand. Not, that's great. It's not great that you just want to look around. That sucks. And we have to admit that that's not a good position to be in. And so for us to say something like, oh, that's fine, that's great, that doesn't get you what you want. I've got to give the customer a reason to come off of that posture that they just put themselves in. So I'm just looking, well, Mr. Customer, is it safe to assume? So I'm going to go into what's called then the redirect. So recognize, react, and redirect. That's the three steps. Now, I'll have a full podcast on that to explain it step by step with a little bit of the techniques and me kind of shadow boxing, if you will, and role playing with myself so you can hear the specific language. The whole idea behind this and many other podcasts, especially while we're in this crisis, it's media-made crisis, but while we're in this crisis, the whole idea is to sharpen our skills, to get better at a few things. You don't have to spend your whole day doing this, but if you're a committed professional, you want to spend as much time as possible looking for different techniques that will put you ahead of the game. So I want you to think about recognizing the difference between an obstacle and an objection. Is the difference between success and struggle. The way to handle it is to recognize it, number one. Number two is to respond. And then number three is to redirect. Put the customer in a different direction. One that allows them to feel like they're still on their agenda. So listen, I want you to go to the next video and sit down, get your favorite thing to drink, I mean during the day, coffee, soda, water, whatever it is, and watch in detail what those three steps are and how to execute those. So again, this is Chris from the road telling you to have a fantastic day. Make the most out of this that you can.